Good evening, my fellow Americans. It is the 9th of October, 2025, edition of A Quiet Rage. I'm in a mountain man sort of motif here today. So, I'm going to start out talking about some local stuff. In the race for Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Democratic nominee, the Democratic candidate, is a man named Jay Jones, who it was just recently discovered some years ago had made a comment about a certain Republican. Hitler and Pol Pot are all in the same room, and you have 2 bullets, and you have to pick who to shoot. And he said 2 bullets for the Republican. This was in a private text message with one other person, from what I understand. I'm not excusing in any way what he said. And I know plenty of people that, if this is the bar, can't run for office because they've made... I know people who have made comments like that in conversations that I've been a part of. In the past, I would have said, yeah, that's probably a disqualifier. But not anymore. I am not going to have MAGA tone police us on the left. I'm just not. I don't need to provide you with the examples of people in MAGA all the way up to the president, Donald J. Trump, our president, the president of these United States, has a laundry list of past comments that are violent comments. He's told people at rallies, knock the crap out of him. I mean, you don't need me to go over this. You've all seen it. So I'm not gonna... If MAGA wants to lower the bar, that violent language like that isn't a disqualifier anymore. I mean, there was a time when, legitimately, like, the decent thing to do if something like that came out would be to bow out of the race. But I would rather, I'm going to look straight in the camera on this one, I would rather have a Democrat who makes jokes about shooting people than a Republican who's going to do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do, which is what our current Commonwealth Attorney General is doing. So that's what I have to say about that. MAGA's not going to tone police me. This very evening, just, 2 hours ago now, was the sole gubernatorial debate in the Virginia governor's race. Abigail Spanberger, Democrat, running against Winsome Earl-Sears, Republican. It's been talked about in the national media, even, that this Virginia gubernatorial race might be seen by some people as sort of a bellwether, an indication of what we might expect next year in the midterm elections. I don't know that I would caution people against looking at either of these, any race in Virginia now, especially with the whole Jay Jones thing. I would caution anyone against trying to look at these races as being a bellwether. For one thing, Trump didn't endorse Winsome Earl-Sears. He was in, I mean, the District of Columbia shares a border with Virginia. He has dipped his toes into Virginia politics a fair amount. When he was down here last weekend for the Navy's 250th birthday, happy birthday, by the way, to all of us sailors. He gave endorsements to a couple of Virginia Republicans, not the governor, not the current lieutenant governor. Winsome Earl-Sears did not get his endorsement, even though she's running to for governor, to follow her current governor, her running mate. Anyway, so the debate. I thought Abigail did pretty well, but that's not a surprise, I should think. These debates these days in politics are hardly worthy of the word debate, but and there were things that I wish Abigail would have said. There were things I think she could have done, answers I think she could have improved on, but since the very first Winsome Earl-Sears for governor ad appeared on my television, I have thought from the very beginning, just my overall takeaway is just she just doesn't seem very bright. She served as a Marine, and that's honorable. She was born in Jamaica and immigrated to this country to find a better life for her family. That's honorable and should be praised. And she's done things to try and help the community. She had a ministry in a prison ministry. I think we can do good things without putting religion in, but anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But I just don't, when she speaks, I'm just like, she just doesn't strike me as a very intelligent person. And she really showed her ass in the debate this evening. I wasn't meaning to keep track of this, but by about, I don't know, 3/5 of the way through it, after the commercial break at the half-hour mark, just after that, I was like thinking, as she was once again interrupting Abigail during her answer, I thought, I don't think there's been a question a question the answer to which hasn't been interrupted by Winsome Earl-Sears. Every time Abigail was speaking, at some point, Winsome would interrupt and just would not stop. It was thoroughly annoying, despite being told every single time by the moderators, Miss Earl-Sears, please, we can't hear when you're talking over her. We can't hear what she's saying. Winsome, a couple of times, I should get a rebuttal to that. Well, you took up the time that would have been your rebuttal by talking over Abigail, and we didn't get to hear really what either of you were saying. So, anyway, thoroughly unimpressive, if you ask me. So I already knew who I was voting for. The debate was more of a spectacle, I guess. Spectacle's not really the word. I just wanted to see. I kind of knew what it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I thought Winsome would be better prepared. I thought she would, I didn't think she would interrupt all the time, trying to, anyway, it was ridiculous. Enough of that. What I really wanted to talk about, the big item that I wanted to talk about, is the gathering a few days ago, a week ago or so, in Quantico, Virginia, by the Secretary of Defense. I'm not going to call it the Department of War. I'm not going to call him the Secretary of War, because that's stupid and childish. It's still the Secretary of Defense. It's still the Secretary, or the Department of Defense, because Congress said so. That's how that works. So, Secretary of Defense summoned 800 senior leadership in the military. Flag officers, that means admirals and generals, 1 to 4-star admirals and generals, and senior enlisted Master Chief Petty Officers of various positions. Gathered them all in Quantico, Virginia, to give them a speech. It's already, I'm just gonna, there's a reason, there's a couple of reasons that we don't, as a matter of course, we don't gather all of the senior leadership of the United States military in one place at one time. There's a reason for that. There are many reasons, actually. Not the least of which is, if you really wanted to cripple the United States and her military, you need one bomb. Just one. And you know exactly when and where they're all going to be. I was trained for 20 years in the Navy to make myself a hard target. Don't offer the enemy, don't offer your adversary a soft target. And 800 generals, admirals, master chiefs, and master sergeants, etc., in one room with the Secretary of Defense and the chairmen of the Joint Chiefs, all in one room at the same. There's a reason that when the president addresses a joint session of Congress to give the State of the Union, that there's a designated survivor. There's that one cabinet official who is many miles away. It's bizarre to me that, I shouldn't be surprised. The same Secretary of Defense that accidentally added a magazine editor to a group chat in which classified military movements were being discussed on an unsecured chat group. That same guy doing this, I'm not surprised. But my flabber was gasted. It blows my mind still. And something occurred to me actually just before I came in here to record this. This was absolutely the Secretary of Defense making a very wimpy, very transparent attempt to show the senior leadership of the military who's boss. He having the big flag there, trying to look like Patton, stomping, walking up and down, all big and bad, talking about welcome to the Department of War, and telling these career military members things that they already know. It was so weak. It was so transparent. He just wanted these flag officers and senior enlisted to know who's the boss. Which it's been said many times in many different ways. But if you're big and bad, if you're actually a badass, if you're actually cool, you don't have to tell people. They'll just know. And the more you try to tell them, the less you're going to look that. The less people are going to believe you. What should have happened, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Secretary of Defense addressing senior leadership of the military. That's part of his job. But rather than making them all come to him, he should have gone to them. He should have taken this show on the road. He should have gone to Yokosuka, Japan, and Ramstein, Germany, and he should have gone to San Diego and Honolulu and Pearl Harbor, and he should have gone to them rather than them coming to him. Just the money, and these generals and admirals and their staff travel often, but the money and logistics and giant pain in the ass, they all had whatever they had going on for that week, especially people coming from European and Asian and South American and traveling many, many time zones. These people had to cancel their entire week so that they could move things around, and then all of the money, which we taxpayers paid for this meeting, so that he could walk up and down in front of a giant flag trying to look like General Patton and plugging his own book at one point. Just anyway, I'm gonna scroll. I have the transcript of his speech up here, and I'm gonna scroll through it and comment on it until I get sick of it. So right from the beginning, let me quote. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. End quote. And then when he speaks, it says Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and then, but right under F-A-F-O, it says unknown. Somebody says fantastic. They included, this is in the the U.S. Department of War official site. I will put the link. I'm sure somebody in that room did say fantastic, but here's the, F-A-F-O, if you don't know, it means fuck around and find out. It means, okay, go ahead. Try that and see what happens. But here's the thing. He was talking to a room of people all of whom are at least my age or older. I'm 42 years old. I am an elder millennial. FAFO, that's something the kids say. That's a meme. That's a pop culture reference. Like, seriously, even my dog disagrees. It was, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to scroll through this. I'm already sick of it. I could go point by point, but I'm not going to. There are a couple of things. So his comment about no beardos and no fatties. I mean, really, beards are a hindrance to combat effectiveness? Then why do special forces get to wear beards? I mean, beards have nothing to do with combat effectiveness. Nothing whatsoever. In the submarine fleet, one thing I really loved about being in the submarine force was, to a certain extent, and it was better in the Pacific Fleet than it was in my time in the Atlantic Fleet, because with anything in the military, the further away you get from DC, from the Pentagon, the less uptight people are. And I enjoyed my time mostly in the Pacific Fleet because generally the attitude of most leadership was that we should follow the rules in as much as they don't hinder us getting the job done. Like we would grow beards when we were on long underways, on deployments. We would grow beards underway, out to sea, because nobody was coming on board to inspect us. Why not? And it didn't affect our combat readiness, I assure you. It actually, it made us have to make less fresh water. Improved our combat readiness, one might say. So one of the things, so he talked about that, and that was dumb. Here come the dogs. Please don't fight. I'm filming an episode. He talked about fitness standards and how that was really annoying. I've known women who could exceed the physical standards that I was held to in the Navy. That whole thing was just bizarre. And he tried to couch it as we're not trying to kick women out of these programs or these forces. If that's what happens, so be it. That's absolutely what you're trying to do. Because he doesn't think women should be in combat roles. He's said as much. Because he's a sexist pig. He did the one thing that I actually, when he said it, I was like, I actually agreed initially, was that the plan going forward is to significantly reduce the amount of regular training that the force has to do. And I'm actually on board with that. Because it did seem towards the end of my time in, like we were always having some periodic training. Like, didn't we just do this? So on its face, I agree. Like, yeah, we need to not be sitting watching PowerPoint presentations or clicking through a presentation on a computer. And we need to be training. We need to be fixing our equipment. We need to be studying our rate, our MOS, whatever the case may be. But I don't trust this administration to remove the training requirements in an intelligent way. So in my 20 years, I saw, I think there might have been more sweeping changes in a short amount of time in the 20 years that I served than maybe any 20-year period previously. I came in right as the effect of the tailhook hazing incident was really starting to take hold. So hazing rituals on board ships and in the military in general were being actively we were getting training on this is not how we behave. In particular, in the submarine force, and I'm sure this was prevalent elsewhere in the military, there was a tradition known as tacking on, which when you got a new rank stripe, or when you got a warfare device, so in my example, my submarine Dolphins, what it started as was that new patch on that new rank patch or that new warfare patch on your uniform. You'd give your uniform top to your division, and they, people in your shop, in your division, in your company, whatever it may be, and it would get passed around, and everybody would put a stitch, their own stitch, into your uniform, that new patch, which is great. That's it's building camaraderie and community. It's like, yeah, not only did you do something, we did something. We got you to the next rank. We got you that warfare pin. We all own this. And that's great. Unfortunately, people would, hey, let's give a good thump there, let's make sure that stays on there. Well, that tap turned into a fist. And I am not being the least bit hyperbolic when I tell you that fist, in some cases, turned into 5-pound sledgehammers. People would go to medical with fractured bones, fractured ribs. I had a roommate for a while in Connecticut who showed me a picture of him the day that he got his submarine Dolphins. He's standing in the machinery room. He was a mechanic. He's standing in the machinery room, flexing, smiling into the camera. He's wearing his submarine Dolphins on his chest. He's not wearing a shirt. They took the clasps off his submarine Dolphins and pushed the pins into the muscle of his chest. And he stood there smiling with his Dolphins tacked into his skin. That's how bad it was. And that was all going away right about the time I joined the Navy. I got a big speech from my chief when I got my Dolphins. He said, "You are not to let anyone tack those Dolphins on you." And that tradition of tacking on has largely gone away. I didn't I saw it. I mean, I saw it on my first ship. I don't recall ever seeing it on any of the other vessels I was on for the rest of my time in the military. So that went away. The don't ask, don't tell policy went away that allowed homosexual service members to serve openly. And then there was the authorization for transgender service members to serve openly and to transition while on active duty. And all through that, all through those 20 years, all through all that change, it was the dinosaurs who thought we've always done it that way is a way to live, is a good answer. It was the dinosaurs who just could not change, who made things difficult. The people in leadership positions who were able to, with insight and wisdom and some grace, were able to make known what the new policy was and train us on it without blushing. Those were the leaders who made it easy. And once it was done, like, none of those things, granted, the transgender service members serving openly, that was very much towards the end of my time. And I knew one transgender sailor. He was on our ship, and then he transferred to another ship and then transitioned to female. And I don't know what happened to her necessarily after that. We didn't, kind of lost track of her after that. And whenever you do something that big, there's going to be growing pains, obviously. But like I said, it was the leadership who was able to, with wisdom, insight, and grace, make the transition. The guys, I served with all males. I never was on an integrated submarine. They were integrating as I was getting out. I never served on an integrated crew. So when I use male in my stories, it's because I only served with males, and that one that later transitioned. But it was the guys who were just like, yeah, this is what we're doing now. We'll learn about it. We're smart. We're submarine sailors after all. We're smart. We'll figure out how to make this work. It was those people who made it easy. And when they made it easy, one of the things that made it easy was you could just, like, oh, yeah, this really, like, they're still doing their job. They were gay before. We knew that they were. Now they just don't have to hide who they are. We can keep doing the job. It's going to be fine. It was the people who were stuck in the past and just could not. It was the closed and or narrow-minded people that made any of that difficult. And the Secretary of Defense is one of those very narrow-minded people that's going to set our military back. I should say he's going to continue setting back our military because he's already has significantly. So Hegseth did what people in the Trump administration often do. He did what weak people think strong people do. And if you haven't seen the speech, I do highly recommend actually watching the whole thing. It's painful at times, but then there's right at the end, he said, what was the quote? "Move out and draw fire, for we are the War Department." And then somebody calls the room to attention, and nobody responds. There was no clapping. Nobody in the Navy said "hoo-yah." Nobody in the Army said "huh." Nobody in the Marines said "oorah." None of that. It was fucking dead silent. And in that moment, my heart was full, because this clown who thought he was going to look like Patton looked, in fact, like a clown, and thoroughly embarrassed himself. And the senior leadership of the United States military refused en masse to clap for a clown. And I appreciated that. Then the president came out and talked. And I do not recommend watching the president's speech, because there's nothing good to be had in that speech. It was at one point he was complaining to these flag officers and senior enlisted that he's never going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. At one point, he explained to the crowd assembled that he didn't respect President Obama. Never respected him. It was a MAGA rally speech. It was rambling and incoherent. It just, as most of his speeches do, it caused me physical pain. It was embarrassing. And despite him saying, "You can all clap, have a good time, do whatever," when he stood up, when he left, they also did not applaud. And I appreciated that. It was embarrassing. It was shameful for our president and secretary of defense to behave in that manner. But that's, like I said, that's what MAGA does. They do, it's weak people doing what they think strong people do. It's dumb people doing what they think smart people do. And nobody in that administration apparently had the stones to say to anybody in a position of leadership, "Hey, this is a bad idea." Because it was a terrible idea. It was a potential horrible day. Could have made the attack on Pearl Harbor look like nothing. A potential intelligence bonanza for any of our adversaries. And it made the United States and the U.S. military, well, the civilian leadership of our United States military, made them look silly, made them look stupid. And I'm really glad I'm not on active duty anymore, because it's just, I'm sorry, but not every component of the active military has the ability to do PT every day. It's just on a submarine in shipyard, not a thing. Not every day. Just can't do it. Anyway, enough of that. It is less than a month to election day. So what can we do if there's an election in your area? If you haven't already done early voting, get out there and vote. Make your voice heard. I mean, I said it in my last episode, I'll say it again. Vote blue no matter who, because we need as many people on the Democratic side as we can possibly get. I didn't talk at all about the shutdown. I might do that later. We're already over 40 minutes, so I'll call it here. But what can we do? We can vote. Get out there and vote. And as I always say, gather with your people. Find a local organization, local Democrats, congregation of some sort, and join. Get active. Get out there. And put up a yard sign. Put up a yard sign for your favorite Democratic candidate. It's easy with all the MAGA stuff that people put out there in their lawns. It can be very easy to feel like there's so many more of them than there are of us, and I assure you, there's not. So put a yard sign up. Anyway, that's all I got. If like me, you will not have your tone policed by MAGA, and you understand that the Secretary of Defense is a clown who is an absolute liability to the military and the country as a whole, then keep your powder dry and keep your quiet rage. Good night, my fellow Americans.